Welcome to Unmasking Government Schools with Sherry Few, US PI's weekly podcast that empowers parents to reclaim their children's education from government bureaucrats and social engineers, equipping you with the tools and resources needed to join the cause.
This is a book that I argued with our superintendent and school board. They insist it's not pornography because it's for underserved children, meaning the gay community. Pornography is pornography. It doesn't matter if it's gay or heterosexual. If I didn't redact these images, I would get punished by Facebook for showing pornography.
Hi everyone, welcome to Unmasking Government Schools with Sherry Few. I'm your host, Sherry Few, and I have another great show for you today. Joining me is Terry Newsome, president of the Illinois chapter of US PI, and we're going to be discussing what he has endured for speaking out against some of the atrocities taking place in government schools, including an attack from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Before we dive in, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating, share the episode with a friend, and don't forget to visit uspi.org to join the movement.
Today's episode is brought to you by U.S. parents involved in education. U.S. PI's mission is to empower parents and local communities to break free from federal and national influences, thereby reclaiming parental authority over their children's education. For more insights from U.S. parents involved in education, connect with us at US PI on X and Facebook. To join the movement, visit uspi.org.
Welcome back to Unmasking Government Schools with Sherry Few. I'm your host, Sherry Few. Joining me today is Terry Newsome, president of US PI's Illinois chapter. Terry is a father of two whose biggest fight has been exposing and opposing the sexualization of children through pornographic books in school libraries. Terry, who once was a Democrat, and we forgive him for that, has since been blacklisted by the radical Southern Poverty Law Center, putting him in the company of organizations like the Family Research Council, Moms for Liberty, and Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. Terry Newsome, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sherry. Great to see you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on. I know you are very busy doing so much, and I'm excited for you to share with our audience all the things that you've been working on and your courageous efforts. So your Illinois PI chapter was placed on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list, as was the South Carolina PI chapter. It was published in 2023, but I believe it was the list for 2022. So I published a quote about it, and I'd like to read what I published. Making the SPLC hate list means we are succeeding in our work to protect children and our country's freedom. If we weren't effective, they wouldn't be coming after us. US PI will continue to fight for parental rights. Making the SPLC hate list means we are succeeding in our work to protect children and our country's freedom. If we weren't effective, they wouldn't be coming after us. And so I know you agree with that, Terry, and your Illinois PI chapter was also listed. And so would you just share with us now what you know about SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, for those who aren't familiar with it, and what happened to you as a result of their targeting you in your Illinois PI chapter?
Yeah, so when we first met and I started getting involved with PI, my children were freshmen going in. They just graduated. They're in college, my boy-girl twins. And so I went to the school board, my kids' school board meeting for the forced masking when they were starting. And then one of the moms showed me the book from Genderqueer. And I'm like, no way. I didn't believe it was in the school. I really did. I had to have my son go and take a picture and send it to me because I was like, no way that this, and it shouldn't be partisan, right? It should just be just normal, right? I didn't know it was going to turn into such a big battle that led me into, being a target of the Antifa, Southern Poverty Law Center, just like all of us. And I had posters that were made and I brought to show the school board exactly what's in there because the parents don't know. The parents don't even know. So I did that on purpose and brought the vulgar images to the school board meeting. I tried to get fathers to hold the posters for me. They were scared. They don't want to get involved. They don't even help their wives out. That's another thing. When I speak, I'm like, guys, you got to start helping the wives for 4 years now. So I had guys that were from my neighborhood that were Proud Boy fathers, and I said, would you come as fathers and hold these signs? I spent $350. No one's going to hold them while I'm speaking. Don't come as Proud Boys, don't come in colors, anything, and they did, and they came just like that. Well, little did I know, one of the mothers on the other side was associated with Antifa, and they started taking my picture and putting it on the Twitter sites of Antifa, and they started threatening me. The next thing you know, that Southern Poverty and Law Center story came out. So the guy that's responsible for putting me, Illinois Pie, and you, his name is Jeff Tischler. Say it again, Jeff Tischauer. He's from Chicago. He's Chicago Antifa. He works for the Southern Poverty and Law Center. So the Democrats and the Antifa woman from my kid's school got him to come after me to try to silence me, to get me to shut up, because that's what they do to parents. And the Antifa is like the militant arm. And now these people work with the Southern Poverty and Law Center to come after us and silence us and label us, just like they did to you, to try to discredit us with lies, right? And so I was placed on this list, and before it came out in the Southern Poverty and Law Center, some of the other people were telling me that this guy Jeff Tischauer, Chicago Antifa, SPLC, was sending emails to my kid's school, foiling all my email communications to try to use it against me, to demonize me. There was nothing he could really use about it. But when he published the story, he said I was racist, I hate gay people, I'm a bigot, all these crazy things that are not true, right? Um, I'm not against gay people. I know, and there's a lot of religious people that have issues and stuff. I've never been against gay people. They want to be gay and do whatever, that's fine. That's up to you. Just don't put it in my face, in my children's face, force it to be in books, and then tell me if I don't think this is appropriate for my children, that I'm a bad person. I'm a racist, a fascist, a Nazi, anti-gay. And that's what they do. They try to just totally discredit us. And you've experienced that yourself, right, Sherry?
Right. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that when it first came out, I know you said badge of honor. So when it first came out, I was devastated. I'm like, oh my God. And then other Republicans, oh, it's a badge of honor. I'm like, I don't know if that's really a badge of honor. Plus my job, they started tagging my job. I worked for a big at the time, big international consulting firm, one of the biggest in the world, out of Paris, very woke company. I'm not going to say their name. And they kept tagging my executives. Then that author, Jeff Tischler from SPLC, said, when we asked Terry Newsome why he tried to overthrow the government, because I peacefully went to January 6th. I didn't do anything. I didn't hit anyone. I didn't even yell. I left before people went in. But he said, I tried to overthrow the government. I left. I was with a police officer who just retired, my friend since 14. So they try to discredit us with all these lies, right? Everything's a lie, including the quote insurrection. Now it's coming out there was 250 agents in the audience. So yes, some people did bad things, and they should be punished, right? Just like anybody else should. But 99.9% of the people there did nothing wrong, right? And so they try to blanket discredit us with lies again. They don't want people like yourself, our organization, exposing the truth. Another thing I say about, when we fight and present to different audiences, I said, don't sit here and tell me that a gay child is going to commit suicide because we don't have this garbage pornography in the school. Don't tell me they're not going to feel included, because that's an absolute lie. These children, gay or not, are children. They're children just like my twins. They're children. So don't tell me that my children have to see heterosexual pornography, or they might commit suicide, or maybe not feel included in the school. That's a lie. You can't tell me that these gay kids are sexual animals, so much that they got to see porn in school or they won't feel included. That's a lie. You guys are doing it for yourself, just like they did drag Santa Claus. I confronted them at the church. They drag Santa Claus for little kids at the church in the parking lot. They had drag bingo, singing Katy Perry songs in my library for children. I confronted that as well, and we had that shut down. But then they, racist, bigot, poor kids, all this crazy lies. They're trying to control our children. They're trying to separate our children from us, the parents. They want weak men and women. They want to weaken our society so it's easier to control us. And that's our job, is to try to make parents wake up, especially fathers, and say, we got to fight back for our kids. I didn't want to lose my job. My wife cried. I was on a domestic terrorist watch list. FBI was at my house. And my wife is like, enough's enough. And I go, Carrie, I said that the reason that we're in the situation that we're in right now is because nobody did anything. They always thought, hey, let Sherry do it, right? Let her do it. Those people do it. And by people not standing up and speaking out, led us to where we're at now. They took over the colleges. Charlie's fighting to get that back. They took over the high schools. We're trying to fight to get that back. And they crept into the grammar schools. And thank God for
That's right.
COVID, we all were able to see what went on and take action to fight. And I don't know. That was a long-winded answer there. I don't if you want to ask me another question, I'm sorry.
Well, well, Terry, you started out talking about when you first started and the school board meeting and the posters that you brought that men wouldn't even hold for you. And you had told me at the beginning you were going to show those, and they are a bit graphic. So I'll just warn my audience. They're not. I mean, he's covered some of the spots that shouldn't be shown. But the discussion may even be graphic today. So if you have young children around, you might want to pause it and watch it later when they're not. But the interesting part about this is it is so graphic that I need to give a disclaimer, and yet this is information that is widely open to young people in schools. So why don't you show us those posters and tell us a little bit about them again?
Yeah, sure. And what's ironic, Sherry, is that like if I didn't redact these images and I would show them on, liberal Facebook, I would get punished by Facebook for showing pornography that's ran by the
Right,
leftist, right? So they're trying
right.
to tell us that this isn't pornography, but then we're being taken off of Facebook for showing pornography. So this is from the book Gender Queer. It's a young lady that wants to be a young boy standing up, and it's a young boy who wants to be a lady on his knees. And again, this is a book that I argued with our superintendent and school board. They insist it's not pornography because it's for underserved children, meaning the gay community. Pornography is pornography. It doesn't matter if it's gay or heterosexual. These people are nuts. So here's the further. So I covered it with duct tape, um, and then I'm not going to read this, but this is the next page. Some pretty graphic comments that are said, and it's not for children. These are in high schools, most high schools, and then in some grammar schools. Then in some schools, it's required reading, like in summer reading, and it's in all the libraries as well. And then, so what they did was to make it more appropriate for young kids in grammar school, they softened it up with the gender unicorn. So they were giving these kids in grammar school these books, Gender Unicorn, and it's a way to, so gradually introduce them to their sickness, right?
Right. That's probably for very young ages, the one with the unicorn.
Yeah, yeah, and Sherry, I mean, there's dozens of books out there now, right? And
Right.
the problem with us in Illinois, one of the reasons I call the podcast Behind Enemy Lines is that we have Pritzker, Johnson, all these crazy leftists. I believe Illinois is the worst of the three states, right? Between New York, Illinois, and California. Pritzker, his cousin's a transvestite. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that?
Right. Right. I did.
Yeah, yeah, and he's pushing all this stuff in the hospitals and
Very
everything.
wealthy too, right? So that's how
Yeah.
he's able to push it.
Yes, yeah. So he's pushing it like crazy, right? And then he came across, he signed a bill last 2 summers ago, book banning, which makes it hard for us as parents, right? To even, we fight back. Say we take over Downers Grove South High School, my kid's school that they just graduated from, and we take over the school board and we go back, we're like, that's porn, that's porn, that's porn. We're going to remove it. Well, this book banning bill applies to the schools and libraries that they will withhold our own tax dollars, which I don't know how this is constitutional, Sherry. They'll withhold our own tax dollars to go to our children's schools if we remove the books that they don't think should be removed. It's the book banning bill. So
That's crazy.
we go through all the pains of getting an election, taking over the school board, then we win, and then we'll get punished by Pritzker for us at the local level, which is the whole purpose of the school board, right?
Right.
And they punish by taking away our own tax dollars from our own children, which is absurd, right? And then the other thing that was good for most states, I guess, Republican states where they removed the Department of Education, right? And or letting funding go trickle down to the state. So what does it do to a state like mine? It gives Pritzker more. It's going to give them more, I guess, money, right, to do what they
Right.
want. I mean, I don't know how they're going to control it. I think they're supposed to try, at the federal level, try to, they're trying to push them, but Pritzker is fighting back on every radical leftist progressive policy out there. I mean, and he's just destroying the state of Illinois and our children. Another thing, back to my, go ahead, Cher.
Oh, I was just going to say it's very sad. And I think you even sent me a text one day when you were frustrated and said you were looking to move south now that your children had graduated. You wanted to get out of Illinois, and I can't blame you. And a lot of people like you have moved south. We have houses popping up all over our very rural community. And yeah, we're just hoping they're going to be people like Terry Newsome and not some of the liberals that are going to bring their politics south.
Yeah, what scares me is like Downers Grove, the county I'm in, DuPage County, was the reddest of red, Sherry, like super red, right?
Okay.
Control. Nobody had a chance in the last 10 years. Now we're blue.
Mm,
We're blue. The cancer,
that's a
just like it
shame.
happened on a macro scale, moving from Illinois and that down to the southern states. Well, the cancer spread from Chicago. They took over all the suburbs. It's crazy, Sherry. They took over all the suburbs. I mean, we're like our Republicans here are Democrats. They're Democrats, right? And they even betray us. The Senate Minority Leader named John Curran, I'm throwing a dig in there. His daughter and my daughter, sophomore year on the same volleyball team. I begged him. He's a Republican, right? I go, would you please say that porn doesn't belong in our daughter's school? And the guy's a Republican. He's our leader. He refused. I met him I confronted him at a meet and greet. He goes, oh, Tara, if I get involved, it'll be political. I'm like, what are you talking about? It is.
Mm,
They want transvestites and drag queens. We don't. Oh, but Tara, it will distract. I'm like, I don't understand. I later found out why, Sherry. He's taking money from the NEA, hundreds of
wow.
thousands of dollars to betray his own daughter. So I can't stand the guy. I call him out all the time. And a bad Republican is better than a Democrat. I'm like, no, this guy's a Democrat. We need to get rid of him. We need to call him out. And the leadership refuses to call him out. If this man won't defend a simple statement to say that doesn't belong in my daughter's school, that's all I asked, right?
Right.
Not going to defend his own daughter. How is he going to represent us behind closed doors?
Right.
He's not.
Right.
He's not.
Well, in a state like Illinois, I can see that being far more likely. But unfortunately, my experience with the Republican Party has been, even in a very red state like ours, is many of them are bought. And many of them are rhinos. They're not even really Republicans in our state. And we can't even get solid legislation passed in our state to prohibit these things. It's truly a mess. The Republican Party itself needs some reform, and I work on that angle a little bit too. So let's I wanted to share with my audience that you told me that you're 63 years old and you're battling two cancers, and yet you're still fighting. And I just love your resilience, and I think it's almost a calling probably for you, as you explained and told your wife, that more people need to be speaking out and supporting you and what you're doing, what I'm doing, what many of us across the country are doing. Not enough. I say many, but
Yeah.
it's not enough.
Mhm.
So good for you, and I pray that you never give up and never quit fighting. So you also told me that you lost your job, and you alluded to the problems there. So it was your job of 22 years in a high-tech industry. And so
Mhm.
after the Southern Poverty Law Center attacked you, as well as Antifa, they harassed executives at your client's company. So tell
Yeah.
us about that, and how are you faring now as far as your livelihood?
Yeah. So Jeff Tischler again, the same guy, right? That came after us.
Mhm.
I was a story came out in the Gateway Pundit of Tom Homan coming to Chicago in December, and I actually had secret private meetings with him at his hotel with Chicago Democrats that want him here. And there's more to come on that story. I can't say yet, Sheriff, but Secret meetings with him. One alderman came out. He's a Democrat, Hispanic. He was, he didn't care, but there was other big names behind the scenes, and so that was a good story. Southern Poverty Law Center, Tischer wrote a hit piece on me, Tom Holman, General Flynn, bigots. We're going after the poor asylum seekers that are here. These poor families, and then all of a sudden, 10 days later, they're tagging my company again, just like they did with the anti-gay stuff. I survived 4 different investigations, Sherry, because I haven't talked to you in ages. Somebody called my office and said I'm walking around. This is a big international corporation, right, in downtown Chicago office, saying how much I hate gay people, and walking up and down the halls. And if they had a pride flag, I'd walk up and make fun of them. They said they worked through the anonymous hotline. They worked for our company. They quit because they felt their life was in danger because of me. And I had an investigation. Obviously, I passed it. It was a total lie. This was a few years ago after COVID. People weren't even in the office. That's what extremes these scumbags go to try to silence us, Cher. They went out of their way. So sure enough, this happened again. They started going after my executives, just like they did before on Twitter. They would tag the North American CEO, the Paris global CEO. They would tag customers that are not even my customers. They're international CEOs, say I was a racist, a bigot, mention, pie, or, anti-government, all this stuff over and over and over again. I kept reaching out to Twitter back in the day before Elon bought it, and they don't care, right? So that was the bad news. The good news is I had 2 job offers the very same day. I was laid off. When I was on the phone with HR, they said, this isn't because of performance. Well, I'm a salesperson, and I won the sales award 7 times, more than anybody in the whole world, that many times. And I said, well, it's not performance. Well, you're a salesperson, then how could you be laid off when it's not performance, right? And I said, it's my politics, isn't it? So remember, I had multiple investigations, right? And the HR lady goes, oh no, we love your politics. We love what you're doing for the children. I want to say liar. And, so now I work for a place where they understand what's going on. I have less stress. Honestly, I didn't realize how lucky I was until afterwards, because this stress was removed from my shoulders, knowing I worked for a company that was woke as woke could be, right? My CEO speaks at Economic Forum, United Nations, massive DEI. And it was like, oh my God, I can't, be myself and just speak up for my kids, which is crazy. It's supposed to be America. And now that's behind us. And I'm 64, by the way.
Okay.
Still alive. I had, I had the stage 4 prostate. I had 5 years ago melanoma. And then since we spoke last time a few years ago, the prostate cancer came back again, and I had radiation and hormone therapy. I joke around. I go, the hormone therapy got rid of my testosterone so much that I started voting Democrat again. It's a joke.
I know it's a joke. Oh, that's funny.
So,
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that God worked everything together for your good, because you're much better off without that job. And I believe stress is even related to illness, including cancer. So, yeah, it looks like God protected you from that, and that's a good thing. And everything you're doing is good. Yeah, and I know you understand that, but it has to be very difficult when you're attacked so very often. So we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I'd like to ask you about President Trump's recent designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorism organization and how that might impact your advocacy work. Don't go away. I'll be back with my interview with Terry Newsome right after this. January 2025 New York Times survey revealed that the vast majority of Americans, including many Democrats, oppose allowing biological males to compete in female sports. Yet despite this public consensus, in June 2024, a boy athlete won gold in female track and field events at a California high school championship. This is just one example of the harm caused to girls when males are allowed to compete in their sports. Many girls lose out on rightful athletic achievements, and their private spaces, including showers and locker rooms, are invaded by boys suffering from gender dysphoria, a recognized mental health disorder. U.S. Parents Involved in Education respectfully urges the protection of female sports and private areas from policies that put girls at risk or undermine their accomplishments. For more information and to join our movement, visit uspie.org and connect with us at USPie on Facebook and X. Welcome back to Unmasking Government Schools with Sherry Few. With me today is Terry Newsome, president of USPie's Illinois chapter. Terry, tell us about President Trump's recent designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorism organization. I'm sure you were thrilled to hear that news.
These guys are truly terrorists, right? They tried to label the Proud Boys as racists, anti-gay terrorists. None of that's true. None of it's true. And then they, for years, say, Jerry Nadler, oh, there's no such thing as Antifa. You remember seeing them say that, And they are organized. They are the militant arm of the Democrats that are being funded by Soros and outside influences trying to destroy our country. They try to intimidate, harass, threaten, come after parents. They use them. They went after Moms for America here, Moms for Liberty. They shut down 3 of my venues. They would threaten the venue. They would threaten the owners personally. If a venue would have bands and stuff, they would go after the bands and threaten the bands and say, hey, you got a white supremacist, racist, anti-gay, homophobe, me, hosting events with other groups. I would have the other, because in what we do in Pi and Moms for America, Moms for Liberty, we have all our different groups, right? But in Chicago, I would bring them together because we're such a minority here, right? To have a stronger voice.
Right.
And they would come after all of us. I had the Gays Against Groomers. They called the founder, Jamie, who's a Jewish lesbian, an anti-gay Nazi. And they, so then read that over and over and over again. And then the media, which I say regularly, the media in the United States of America, to me, is more dangerous than the media is in China and North Korea to their own citizens. Why? Because people in China and North Korea know that the media is controlled by the government and the military, right? They know that there's lies. Now, in the United States, it gives the fake perception that the mainstream media is neutral, independent, and not controlled by the leftist Marxist Democrats. So that the people that follow them, the lemmings, the people that aren't smart enough to figure it out, well, wow, it's on CNN. It's got to be true. So they're slamming all of us, right? They're demonizing us. It's reinforced through social media, the media outlets, Hollywood. And so it's diminishing our voice because we're successful if we could get it out there. So when we get attacked by these guys, it's a good thing. So now that Trump has designated them as a terrorist organization. So for instance, the main 2 guys that came after me, Jeremy and Jason Hammond, the very beginning, that were putting my pictures out that you probably saw back when I first met you, threatening me, saying to shoot me and all this stuff. I was at the ICE facility on last week. And so were my friends and stuff. And, I'm collaborating with some of Tom Homan's guys and the head guys in Chicago, saying these guys are the head Antifa guys. These guys are behind all of this terrorist stuff between the No Kings, Black Lives Matter, DNC, school boards. They would show up, they threaten, harass them. So guess what ICE did? They saw them there. They went, came out in a van and arrested them both. So now they're locked up in federal custody. The guys that I almost had I was so stressed out when I was under those hormones and therapy and, and the stress of cancer. Am I going to live doing this stuff? And I would wake up and I'd see my executives tagged from these guys, right? I'm a terrorist. I hate people, all this crazy stuff. Kind of ironic. I had my little fingerprints involved in the guys that came after us. These guys are friends with Jeff Tischler. They're his buddy. He's Antifa. Jeff Tischler's the guy that put me, Illinois Pi, and you on the list. He's the guy behind it. So we got his buddies are locked up, sitting in federal custody, which is different than sitting in the city of Chicago when they're all corrupt and they're protecting these guys. They're
Right.
protecting them. So now they hopefully can travel the money stream to these full-time anarchists, right? Like these guys, they're full-time. Sure. When they show up with signs, they've got they got tons of signs made by professional printers. We have enough we have a hard time raising change to get signs for ourselves, right?
Right.
I was there at Ben Berquam and some of the Real America Voice guys, and they had a baseball field full of signs on sticks. A truck just dumped them off, right? And that's what we're fighting. Our little voices, right? We're fighting against this stuff, and I think we're making headway. I think what happened to Charlie Kirk is going to create a momentum. I'm still so upset about that. It's like a family member. I knew him. I spoke with him. the war on children. Was I friends with them? No, but we would text. We knew each other, and if it was just so upsetting. It was so upsetting to me because he's been such an important voice for us, for the kids, for the colleges, for the future of America. Right?
Amen.
He was changing it. I tried to start a turning point. I tried to have my kids started at first, and those leftists kept pushing my kids, saying, "Oh, go to the government club afterwards." Well, the government club is ran by a leftist teacher, wore a mask, BLM, the flag, what I mean? And so they went once. And I'm like, that's when I got involved. And I reached back out to the people that I would fight with all the time and say, listen, the kids want to start a TPUSA. Oh, we were going back and forth. They said, well, TPUSA is a national organization, and we don't allow that in Downers Grove High School. They can't be sponsored by national organizations. So I looked on the website. The government club was sponsored by a leftist organization in California on the website. So I said, either you're going to start one, TPUSA, or you're going to shut down the government club. So what they did was they refused the TPUSA. They got rid of the company from California endorsing or whatever they did. And then I got an email from the principal saying, well, it's, I looked up, I don't know much about him, but I see he spouts dangerous rhetoric. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of ironic now, buddy. Who's dead? Charlie
Mm.
didn't never espouse dangerous, violent rhetoric ever. He never did that.
Well, you're so right. And so I know that Antifa started going after you again, right? I mean, you even sent me something as
Yeah.
recent as this morning, a new hit piece. So
Mhm.
it's because you're working with Tom Homan. So
Mhm.
tell us about that. And before you do, you sent me that article, and I just wanted to read what they said about your
Sure.
Pi chapter. Because it was paragraphs upon paragraphs, as you know, of just all kind of slander against you in all sorts of ways. So let me just read what it said about your Pi chapter. Again, it was a ton of slander, but this particular part interests me. It says, Newsome is the Illinois chapter leader of the anti-student inclusion group, Parents Involved in Education. And there's a link there to a full article on how they paint us as anti-student inclusion group. So it says it's based there in Illinois. The organization presents itself as a group of concerned parents. They oppose LGBTQ plus inclusive education and work to limit accommodations for trans students and silence classroom discussion of the U.S. legacy of systemic racism. And it goes on, but it's just over the top. And that's just a small piece of that article. So tell us a little bit about that and your recent
Yeah,
attacks.
if you notice too, he's content this morning. If you scroll up again, it has racist whatever. He's such a liar, man. I mean, this is
Yeah.
the same man who said that he asked me why I try to overthrow the government. No answer. He didn't ask me that. I mean, the guy's a liar. The guy. I
Mm.
mean, they're just blatant liars. And you know what? Now that because I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, I went with the Center for Self Governance to DC, right? About
Right?
this was under the Biden administration about the Southern Poverty Law Center and trying to get rid. So I reached out to some politicians in the last week now about this. So Jeff Tischler is a Chicago Antifa associate. So are they going to do something about having a terrorist organization writing articles now? Are they going to allow that to happen? Right?
Yeah. Let's
So
hope not.
this he's trying to embellish, lie, spin, twist everything he can. I mean, in the first story, if you remember, to try to discredit me, he put the picture of me laughing with Alex Stein, the comedian, right? Alex Stein, I don't know if you know him. He goes to school boards dressed up like transvestites. He's on our side, but he's arguing. He's hilarious. And then a Christian rapper who doesn't even swear, Fogiato Blow. He's tattooed. He looks like a gang member. Doesn't swear. Christian rapper. They put that in the first story, trying to discredit me or maybe discredit them for being me. I have no idea. These
Mm.
people are evil liars. And the biggest supporters, Sherry, since I, saw you, has been spiritual grandfathers, Catholics. I'm a Catholic, not a good Catholic, but I am a Catholic. And these grandfathers would come and show up to my events. And then they would do the rosary every Thursday for years for their children, their grandchildren in America, because they were so scared, from 10 to 20 men. And I would go and meet with these guys and they would show up. And I know, 35 years ago, I got in trouble. I feel from a spiritual perspective, I'm redeeming myself for what I did back then. And I went to state and federal prison. I changed my life. I feel that what I did then prepared me for what I'm doing now for us, because I go out and do stuff people are scared of. That's nothing to me. As a young man, I was 22 and never got in trouble or any of that life. I got recruited by older mob guys, and without getting, I looked up to them for the wrong reasons, right? I
Right.
paid my debt to society. I changed my life 35 years ago, not like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I've
Right.
been good since. I got this big job. I live next to a heart surgeon, but the things I did, and I go out and confront them. I go in dressed up like Antifa in the middle of them. The stuff that I went through is, I really feel in my heart I went down that bad journey in my life to really prepare me for what I'm doing now, and it was
Amen.
for a reason.
Amen.
I believe that.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said earlier about you getting the better job. Is God has worked things together for good, which is straight out of scripture. That's what he does for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And I have no doubt that you are called to this, and he prepared you for this through your past experiences. So I'm glad you recognize that. That's awesome. So you want to go on
And
about?
I got, yeah, the 3 bouts with cancer. I mean, I should be dead. I got stage 4 prostate cancer 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Then it came back, and then,
Amen.
the melanoma cancer. And I'm still here. I'm here with my mom, my 86-year-old, very Catholic mother, would cry back in the day, "Oh, you're here for a reason. I don't know why yet." This is before. I keep oh my gosh. Now, and she is, my mom is proud of what I'm doing, your organization, the things that I'm doing for the kids. And
That's
my mother
great.
was, when I first transitioned, I use that as a joke. I transitioned to being a Republican. When I first did that, she was angry, right? Oh, they're corrupt. This is why, 20 years. I got pictures with Dick Durbin in 2000 with my mom and my little daughter at the time. And I was actually starting to I'm like, these guys are kind of nuts but my mom loved them. We went to DC and she set it all up, and how corrupt and all the evil, dirty monies with the Republicans. She's done a 180. She's like a Trump granny
Oh,
on
wow.
Facebook. And yeah. And my father, he's a 85-year-old Republican, city of Chicago union worker, Trump guy. He's been like a long time, he's been Republican for quite a long time, but he was a city of Chicago union Democrat, man. And they are coming behind us. The union men and women are supporting us. It's the leaders that are taking the money, the payouts, the bribes to get the governmental contracts, and that's what's affecting them. You saw the Teamster head, right? You saw the head of the Teamsters did not endorse. This is kind of ironic, if you remember. He did not endorse Kamala Harris, which was a slap in the face to the Democrats, right?
Right.
But he also, and that was supposed to be a big deal. But you know what? 68% of the union supported Trump. He still didn't go and support Trump. It was a big win to say he didn't support her, but look what the union leader did. He didn't follow the voice of his people. 68% of them were Trump supporters.
Well, thank goodness for that. And I think even the movement with Charlie Kirk bringing so many young people in, and I believe Trump has a serious plan about changing the culture of Congress. With the redistricting that's happening all over the country, it's a specific intentional plan for the second half of his term, where I think we're really going to see the hammer drop, and that's my hope and belief. So it's so important, that I think you understand that we have kind of a foot in politics and a foot in our work with protecting children. They go hand in hand because
Yeah.
it is the corrupt politicians, the corrupt Republican Party. And believe me, I would never vote for a Democrat. Excuse me, I did one time. It was a pro-life Democrat who was running against someone who claimed to be a Republican who I knew was not. And at least the Democrat was pro-life. The other one was a liar. So I did one time vote for a Democrat. But we have some problems within our Republican Party too. And my biggest concern about the party is, our mission is supposed to be to recruit and elect people that will support our platform. And so we don't do that. We protect the rhinos that are in office. It's kind of an unspoken rule
Oh,
among
yeah.
Republicans that you never say anything negative about an incumbent. And so in South Carolina, we're famous for Lindsey Graham. So he's a classic example of the Republican Party protecting rhinos. He basically owns our Republican Party here in South Carolina. So I didn't mean to get off on politics, but they really
No,
do work hand in
that,
hand.
that's like it. That's like us here with the Illinois GOP. We say we have the big tent party, right?
Right.
So I was a committeeman twice, right? And then as I noticed their big tent party to me means big tent will take everybody in, right? Minorities and everybody. Big tent in the state of Illinois means they try to tell us, well, you got to accept the rhinos. Well, that's what they need to do to win. It's like, that's what it meant.
Right.
And then, I'm labeled a racist by the left and Southern Poverty Law Center. I helped. I set up the dinner with senior GOP people with money. I had a friend. I grew up on the Southwest Side in Chicago, right across the street, 87th and in Cicero, Chicago. My friend Devin Jones opened up the first in the history of the city of Chicago an African American led Republican office. I helped him do that. I helped him, he did the work and stuff, but I helped them meet the right people. I had them, donate money to get them going. Unfortunately, it wasn't sustainable, but that was a historic thing. And these Republicans, I asked them, who do you talk? They don't even know who they were talking to. Like, who's your African American league? They didn't have anybody. Hispanic league, nothing. I tried to drive a sanctuary state referendum and the city of Chicago referendum to remove sanctuary state and city. I started the Save Illinois Coalition, a bunch of minorities, different groups. I told the GOP, I need help. This will help us for the election. Even if we don't get on the ballot for the referendums, right? We weaponize the signature process. So, like, say if Sherry's a Democrat in Chicago and hey, would you sign this? Oh, you're not? Wait a minute. You're going to put these illegal Venezuelans and stuff before us? Then we use it in the primaries. We use it in the general elections. Even if it doesn't get, yes, we want it to be on the ballot. They're so incompetent that they didn't, they have no money. They have nothing. It was a weapon for our candidates to use, right? I mean, I was on shows, interviews and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? If you guys aren't going to help me, you only have so many people, Sherry, that help out, right? It's always the same people over and over again. And you work them like dogs, right? And we work together like dogs. And it gets frustrating. I just quit the Illinois GOP last month. I quit. Tired of it. You guys, as committeeman, I go here. You guys, you lose every election. You do the same thing over again, over and over again. Incompetent. You can't raise money. People are tired of knocking on doors. You can't pay your rent, and they're building now. In my township, we lose every election, Sherry.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
that
you
has
know,
to be frustrating. And it is. It's about the inner workings and in our party, it's even rules for thee, but not for me. I mean,
yeah.
they even violate their own rules just to get what they want, and they do election tampering to keep the same people in office and in control. But we have a pretty strong movement in South Carolina. We've been working on it for about 6 or 8 years, and we came really close to replacing our chairman, like within 16 votes at the convention 2 years ago. Wasn't quite as close this last time, but we're determined. We're not giving up, and we're going to keep pushing to what we call make the Republican Party great again. So obviously
I
in
got you.
Illinois, it's a much more difficult task. I can imagine you giving up there. So listen, we've talked about a lot of wonderful things, and there was one more thing I wanted to bring up before we go to another short break is you mentioned how you had gone to DC with the Center for Self-Governance, and I remember that, and I have often wondered if you were connected with the new organization that Sam Sorbo is helping to lead. It's called Parents Defending Justice, and they put together a
Oh,
dossier and took to DC. Are you familiar with that group?
no.
Okay. Well, I need to get you connected with Sam Sorbo. She's a good friend of mine. She's been on the podcast a couple of times. They put together a dossier of parents like you who have been attacked and slandered and lost your job, and others have been put in jail, and the list goes on. Back when the teachers, let's see, who was it? It said we were domestic terrorists. It was the School Boards Association. So it was back during that era, all those parents that got dinged for that. So let me connect you after our interview, of course, with Sam Sorbo.
Yeah.
She needs to hear your story. She would probably even love to interview you on her
Yeah.
podcast.
I bet I was on her show twice about over a year ago. I lost
Okay.
track, but yeah, But
Okay.
yeah, it's send her a text message. Hopefully, she remembers me.
Sure.
Yeah, I was on her twice,
Yeah, we
and
need.
I didn't know about our group. I mean, this is
Yeah,
we need
and
to connect and
they have some connection with the Trump administration with the I think it's called the weaponization workforce that they developed. So they delivered the dossier there. So yeah, I'll definitely let Sam know that it'd be really good if she reaches out to you. So let's go ahead and take another short break. And when we come back, I'd like to ask you two questions I ask all my guests before closing the show. So don't go away. I'll be back with my interview with Terry Newsome right after this. LGBTQ is an acronym widely used, but the T portion related to transgender issues has caused serious harm in schools. Consider the Jane Doe lawsuit from Rhode Island, where a mother alleges her daughter was secretly transitioned by school staff and later attempted suicide. The school used social-emotional learning surveys that asked personal questions about the child's gender identity and feelings. The daughter was presenting as a boy at school while remaining a girl at home and was encouraged to keep the transition hidden from her mother. This heartbreaking case highlights the dangers of gender transitions without parental consent. U.S. Parents Involved in Education opposes these practices and advocates for parental rights and student safety above all. For more information and to join our movement, visit uspie.org and connect with us at USPie on Facebook and X. Welcome back to Unmasking Government Schools with Sherry Few. With me today has been USPI's Illinois Chapter President, Terry Newsome. Terry, we close our show with two important questions. What concerns you most about what's happening today in education, and what gives you hope?
sure. So what concerns me most is in states like Illinois, and there's others like us, we're stuck on an island, right? We have very little control in what is given to our children, even if, as I mentioned earlier, in the school boards, right? We take it over and stuff. So there's an indoctrination, going on with our children, and it's kind of like a slow motion train wreck. And it until we have the ability to control, um, it's not book banning. I mean, it's just common sense, right? It's just common sense to keep stuff out of the schools that don't belong there. There should be no sexualization, no indoctrination, no trying to brainwash our children. For example, my kids are, they're not actively vocal like us. My son might be. My daughter is going to school for art, which is, liberal arts. And I'm like, don't let him brainwash you, right? So a day after Charlie Kirk got assassinated, my daughter calls me and she said, Daddy, I went into the art class and there's this one leftist, how you could see how the different color hair and stuff, right? And she had a big grin like the Grinch. Did you see what happened? Like proudly that Charlie Kirk was murdered. The school teacher, instead of either pretending he didn't hear what this girl said or chastising her, he made it worse. He said, well, that's what you get for supporting the Second Amendment rights and saying you're willing to die for it. And we just had parents weekend there. I wanted to go and confront that guy, but I put I put my kids through. My wife was, with Downers Grove High School. I'm like, she's a freshman. I'm not gonna, because my son was football player of the week once, and they put out in the digital bulletin Gavin Newsome. So I'm not related to the Newsomes. My son's not Gavin, it's Anthony, and I have an E on my name. So that's kind of the little. But the kids did really really well. But I'm concerned there's too much control of the narrative in the school from the leftists, and we don't have a voice like we should be. Right? That's a big problem. I think we're making some headway, but I don't think we're making nowhere near as much headway that would make you comfortable or me comfortable, right?
Right.
And we have ways to try to balance that out. We're going to have a huge battle in front of us. What gives me hope? So the Charlie Kirks, the stuff that you're doing, that I'm doing, other people are doing, people are waking up. Another big deal is that you're seeing these younger kids vote coming our way, right? And
Right.
especially the boys, which is odd. I don't know if you know that. There's more boys becoming Republicans than girls. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That is very good news.
Yeah, and what's fun, a reflection, when we went to TPUSA, my twins were VIP guests of Charlie's, and they each got to bring two friends, right? One for my daughter, one for my son. And my
Mm.
wife went, even though she don't like the politics. And So my daughter couldn't find one girlfriend to go with. One girlfriend. My son found a bunch of them. He had to pick 2 boys to come with, which is just a snapshot of what you hear in the media and stuff about the stats that the boys are shifting quicker than the girls.
Right. Right.
So my own microcosm experience of that. So I think we're making headway. Unfortunately, what happened to Charlie Kirk is swayed a lot of people to our side from a religious perspective. My understanding is that there's more, spiritual type connectivity going on that I think is necessary, regardless of your religion. In most cases, I did a show on the Muslims last night. I'm sorry, but in most cases, I think we have to have God more. And again, not that I'm not highly spiritual, but I do believe, and I believe that we need to have God in back in our lives and in the communities and the schools like we
Amen.
used to have.
Amen.
And it's important, and we have to have fathers get involved and help our wives. I still don't, see enough. And no, you don't want to lose your job, but you know what? If we don't have a country for our kids and our future kids and grandkids, who cares about your job? I didn't want to lose my job, but you know what? I'm not going to stay silent and watch the destruction of the future of my children because I want to sit on the sidelines because of my job. I got another job. I was fortunate, but you can't use that as an excuse anymore. And this came up last night with the gentleman, the FBI agent, that said about the Muslims and how they're entrenching everywhere, and you can't stay silent. We're losing our America from many different fronts, from the school front that you're passionate about, from the Muslim front, from the illegal immigration and Venezuelans, and it's all they're working together. The guy told me you got the Muslims working with these, the communists and trying to separate. He said about our children from our parents. It's not Republicans against Democrats. It's good versus evil.
Amen.
I really believe that.
That's
And until
exactly what it is.
we're in a war, we're losing the war badly, and they don't even know we're in a war. You have to get off the couch and act like we're in a war. You don't have to do what I do or what Sherry does, donate money to Pi, right? Go to a school board meeting, maybe run for a school board, but don't bury your head in the sand and think it's going to get fixed by itself. It's not. Donald Trump is a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid.
Mm.
And we have this foundation to make the future of America and our children and future grandchildren safe, because we're going to lose everything if you don't get your asses off the couch, dads.
Well, I love the way you characterize that, especially Trump being a Band-Aid, and the fact that you said we need God in everything, and in the public square, and that's what gives you hope, and that's where we gain our hope from, is from God. And I think a lot of Christians too, because things have gotten so bad, they're looking toward Armageddon, and it's just right around the corner. Jesus is coming back, and I think they almost just refrain from doing anything because they think the time is near. So, they know how the story ends, so there's nothing to do. And I totally disagree with that. I just finished Eric Metaxas' latest book called Religionless Christianity. And he's sounding the alarm, saying that we have to get in and fight for our country, and God will show us mercy, like He did in the Bible in many instances when people honored Him and focused on Him to be their salvation. But I just thank you so much, Terry, for all you're doing in Illinois and all of your work that you're doing with folks around the country. You're an exemplary example to men in our country. And you're right, there are so many mothers and women that are leading the movements. I mean, Moms for Liberty, Moms for America. Thank goodness we didn't name our organization Moms, because we believe
Yeah,
that
right.
men absolutely need to be involved more. And it's even that way in the Republican Party. It's a lot of women that are
Yeah.
active.
And
So,
old people,
and
women
old
and old
people.
people.
That's right. You're exactly right. So thank you again for all you're doing. Thank you for taking time to be on the show today. And I want to thank our listeners. If you found today's discussion eye-opening, please share this episode with a friend, give us a 5-star rating, and subscribe to stay informed. You can connect with us on Facebook and X and US Pi, and visit uspi.org to join the movement. Until next time, I'm Sherry Few.
U.S. Parents Involved in Education is a nonprofit coalition dedicated to restoring local control of education and parental authority. By empowering parents to reclaim responsibility for their children's learning and encouraging states to move away from federal influence, U.S. PIE seeks to create a culture where parents are the primary decision makers in education and schools support families without the burden of federal mandates. If you want to start a state or regional U.S. PIE chapter in your area, please visit uspie.org and complete the brief questionnaire in the chapters section.